We're going to talk about the different letter sounds in Spanish. A lot of sounds the letters make in Spanish are the same or similar to English. The ones we're going to focus on today are different than English. They have their own distinct sound, okay? So we're going to start with our vowels, or in español, los vocales. So the vowels in Spanish, they never change. They always sound the same, like they have one pronunciation, unlike in English. So this letter is ah. Now I know this seems silly because you're by yourself, but repeat. Ah. Okay? So ah is like in the word llama. ¿Cómo se llama or cómo te llamas? Ah. Llama. You see there's two ahs in there. They both make it an ah sound. Okay, and then we have eh, eh. Okay, so it's sort of a short sound, and just look at how I'm moving my mouth and saying it, eh. Okay, so eh, like in elefante, elefante, elefante. You notice how that eh sound, that A is in there 3 times, but it sounds the same every time, elefante. Okay, then we have I. This letter sounds like I. Okay, make this a little bigger. There we go. So this letter sounds like I. I as in English. You know the word for English. I as in English. English. I. Okay. So as you're going, write down these example words. Also, write down any other words you already know in Spanish that fit these letters. See if you can come up with some other words we've learned or that you have maybe learned before, even numbers like uno, anything that you can think of that has these letters in it so you can practice pronunciation. So I want you to use my example and then I want you to include some other examples of your own, just ones from your own head, okay? Then we have oh. O as in solo. Solo means only or alone. Solo. So the O pretty much sounds the same as in English. It's just short. O. Okay. And then we have U. U. So it doesn't make a U sound exactly. It makes U. U as in uno. Uno. Okay. So our vowels again are A, E, I, O, U. A, E, I, O, U. And again, the cool thing about those is they always sound like that. They don't change. So in English, we have a lot of different vowel sounds depending on what the word looks like. In Spanish, they always sound like A, E, I, O, U. So those are our vowels. That's our main base. Once you know how to pronounce the vowels and can remember that, you are doing super well for Spanish pronunciation, okay? Because a lot of the rest of it is pretty similar to how we say things in English. All right, here's some letters down here that don't really follow how we pronounce things in English, okay? So we have this letter. In Spanish, the letter is called jota, jota. Okay, so we have this letter, jota. It makes like an H sound in English. So in English, it makes an H sound. So maybe write that to help you remember. Okay? We make this in like the words for June and July. Junio and julio. You might notice that I don't capitalize the J in junio and julio, even though they're months. So in English, we always capitalize the first letter of a month. In Spanish, you don't, okay? So the J in Spanish always makes the H sound. It's called jota is what the name of the letter is, okay? And then we have the H, and it is silent. The H doesn't make any sound. So the word hola, you guys all know hola from Dora. You don't see the H, okay? Hablo, I talk, you don't say the H. So the H is always silent in Spanish. We just pretend it's not there. And then we have this. The N with the squiggly is called ñ in Spanish, and it makes a ñ sound. Ñ. It's almost like an N and a Y together. We see the word the ñ in, for example, español. Español. Or señora. Señora C, Mrs. C. So you hear the ñ. It's not español, it's español. So that makes a ñ sound. Okay. All right. And then our last section is letter combinations. Okay, so these letter combinations have to do with the letters that come after change how they're pronounced. Okay, so we have ka, ko, ku. Okay, when a C is followed by an a, an o, or an u, it makes a k sound. Okay, ka, ko, ku. So for example, canto, I sing. You've got the ka, ka. You guys have probably seen this movie, Coco, ko. Okay, so whenever it's followed by a, o, or u, it makes a k sound. Okay. Here, if it's followed by an e, this, or an e in Spanish, it makes a s sound. For example, the word celebrar. I bet you can guess that. So that's a baseball word. Celebrar means to celebrate. So the C is followed by e, celebrar, so it makes a s sound. Okay. So that's how this pronunciation, the pronunciation of this letter se in Spanish changes. Okay. We do the same thing with the letter G, or in Spanish it's called he. And when it's followed by an a, an o, or an u, it makes a hard G, g, a g sound. For example, gato, which we talked about in class, is a cat. Gato. Right? It makes a g sound. So anything ga, go, or gu makes a g sound. Tango. I have makes a go sound at the end. Okay? And if it's followed by an e or an e, it makes an h sound, an h sound. General, which just means general. General. You hear that makes an h sound. Okay. And then we have some other double letter combinations. So we talked about this in class, but when you have two L's, it makes a y sound, okay? So I think we talked about llama. We talked about los pollitos. Remember, los pollitos dicen pollitos, which these two L's make a y sound, okay? La gallina, when we sang that song, la gallina busca, makes a y sound. In some countries, instead of the y, their accent, it makes a j sound. So it would be llama, pollitos, gallina. But the Spanish I speak, it makes that yes sound. So it's just like different accents in English. So they say it a little differently, but it's really easy to tell what they're saying. Okay. All right. And then we have two R's, double R's. A lot of my students get really intimidated by the double R's because they say, Senora, I can't roll my R's. I don't know how to do that. I couldn't either in Spanish 1. And I really wanted to learn how to roll my R's. Rolling your R's is like rrr. So my Spanish teacher told me to practice. So there's a few ways you can practice. You can say dee 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 dee, and what that does is that gets your tongue moving fast. Something that helped me was saying vroom 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 like a cart. That like makes your tongue slick. I know this is silly, and I am not kidding. I practiced, and finally in Spanish 3 I could do it. So if you can't do it now, just practice, kind of to get that motion going, and I promise you'll get there. Okay, so whenever we have two R's, they make a r sound. So we talked about dogs in class, perro. So we have two R's there, and it makes a r, perro. So you just slightly roll it, okay? And then when you have two C's together, the first C makes a k, k sound, and the second C makes a s sound, okay? So, for example, acción, action. You hear how the first C, ac, and the second C makes a sion sound, okay? And then lastly, we have ch, ch, makes that ch sound just kind of like in English. And the word that we did with this is muchacha, whoops, and muchacho. Okay, so now I want you to go back through. Oh, sorry, we got two more. Once we do these. Okay, so the last two, we have QUI and QUE. We see these a lot. So QUI, it sounds like the word key in English, key, okay? A word we know with QUI is quién. Quién means who, okay? So anytime you see QUI together, it sounds like key. And there's a lot of words that have QUI in them. Same thing with QUE, it sounds like K. Okay, the word we know with QE is K, which means what? But you'll see a lot of letters, or a lot of words with these three letters together, and it always makes that K sound. So if you remember that, it helps you with your pronunciation. Okay, now that we've done them all, I want you to go through and practice saying them and see if you can think of any other words you know that might fit in these categories, okay? If you know some other words that fit in these categories, write them down, and we'll talk about them when you come back to class. Okay, gracias, adios.